Issei is an ugly, disgusting loser who dreams of clapping baddies, but his thick gooner aura always shuts him down. His life turns around when he accidentally summons a demon goddess, and she falls in love with him. But before this, he is just a dead-ass pile of junk who enjoys being at the bottom tier of society simply because he can peep up under skirts better from down there. His loser group chat feeds his delusions, and the three dream of getting a personal harem one day.
Stop the cap!
Later on, as Issei walks back home, he curses his hands for never having touched real plot cannons, when a certified baddie approaches him and asks if he's dating anyone. Issei thinks it's funny she should ask that, after seeing his face, and he almost has a seizure when she asks if he would date her.
You're serious? This guy?
Obviously, he says yes and wakes up the next morning with a disgusting, smug look on his face. He shows her off to his mentally challenged friends, introducing her as Yuma, and the two are so shocked that they go back to factory reset mode. That evening, Yuma asks Issei out on a date, and he instantly agrees, dancing all the way back home. While he does that, a lowly spies on him while sucking on a popsicle and reports the events back to the school's baddest plot queen, Rias, who has taken an interest in Issei.
What the hell is wrong with you?
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 The next day, while he waits for Yuma, some shady chick hands him a pamphlet that claims to fulfill any wish. He shoves it into his pocket as soon as Yuma shows up, and the two head out to a mall where she tries to fix Issei's retarded sense of fashion with her circus-inspired taste. Later, as they enjoy some ice cream at a cafe, she keeps Issei hooked with some fan service, and on their way back home, admits it was the best date of her life. He takes this chance to hold her hand and finally experiences what it's like to touch a girl. Just then, Yuma asks if he'd do one more thing for her, and while Issei imagines clapping her cheeks, she turns into an R-rated fallen angel and tells him to die for her.
Yes, I knew it!
While Issei is too busy enjoying her plot cannons, she forges a lightsaber and impales him in the chest, essentially ending his Ken Kaneki first date experience.
No more dating. I'm ready to settle down.
She explains how he needed to be exterminated because he has a sacred gear implanted inside him and leaves him to die. Issei regrets she didn't even let him touch her giant marshmallows before unaliving him, and stares at the blood on his hands, which reminds him of Rias's red hair. This makes him regret the crappy life he lived, and he wishes that if he were ever reborn, he would like to die in Rias's arms. Just then, the pamphlet turns to ashes, and a red magic circle appears. A woman in his school uniform materializes out of it, and with just one look at her jiggly jugs, he realizes it's Rias. She tells him he'll become her faithful dog from now on, while she flaps her own wings, and Issei collapses. The next morning, he wakes up in his bed and wonders if all of it was just a dream, but finds it fishy how real it felt. He goes to school, and both his friends fail to recall him ever stepping out of the virgin territory or getting a girlfriend. In fact, Yuma's contact info and pictures also disappeared from his phone. Just as he wonders why that is, Rias shows up and gives him a smile as she walks past him. This messes with his brain while his shameless friends invite him over to watch some R-rated workout videos, just so he would get his head out of his Yuma-chan delusions. That night, as the two turn out the lights and get busy working on their acorns, Issei notices he can see better in the dark, which sends a shiver down his spine. He immediately takes his leave and steps out, only to realize not only his eyes, but his hearing has improved quite a lot. While trying to figure out what brought this on, Issei mindlessly wanders back to the same park where Yuma almost turned him into steak tartare, only for another emo clown to show up. Issei tries to run for his life, but the clown quickly catches up, and he realizes this loser has the same set of wings as Yuma. This guy forges a lightsaber too, and yaps about how he cannot sense that Issei has a master or mate, and concludes that he must be a stray. As the lightsaber impales him, Issei curses his fate for dying at the hands of some nasty old man rather than a baddie like Yuma. As he gets down on his knees and cries in pain, the budget Michael Jackson pulls out another lightsaber, hoping to finish Issei off. Just then, a burst of red lightning electrocutes him, and Rias shows up, warning him not to hurt Issei any further. He attacks her in retaliation, but the power of fanservice deflects it, and he gets electrocuted by another burst of lightning, this time by Akino, Rias's right-hand woman. It finally restructures his brain cells, and the old man realizes he's up against Rias, who belongs to a noble demon family. She warns him not to cross Issei again, and he apologizes for his misconduct, advising that she put a mark on Issei so he isn't mistaken for a stray. The loser tells her to remember his name, Donasik, and flies away. Afterwards, Rias turns to Issei and claims she won't let him die. The next morning, he wakes up in his bed without any clothes on and almost has a heart attack when he finds Rias sleeping next to him, just as naked. He wonders if he lost his V card last night to a baddie like her, but she wakes up and tells him she's a demon and he's her servant from now on. Just as these master-servant dynamics start making sense to Issei, his mother walks in on him and Rias in bed. Shocked, she quietly takes her leave while Rias takes it as nonchalantly as possible. Issei, on the other hand, dies of embarrassment and tries to recall how he and Rias even ended up in the same bed. She quietly explains to Issei that he wasn't dreaming about getting stabbed last night. While his attention stays on her exposed melons, she explains she healed him by hugging him skin to skin and that he shouldn't worry, as he hasn't lost his precious V card yet. That morning, he becomes the toast of the town as he walks into the school with Rias, making guys and girls curse his luck just the same. Before leaving him be, Rias tells Issei she'll send an errand boy for him later, and before he can ask why, his friends print his face onto a nearby pillar, berating him for betraying their loser's alliance by clapping a hot chick. He pisses them off even further by boasting he's now seen real marshmallows with his blessed eyes, while Rias meets up with a girl named Sona, who wonders what's so special about Issei that Rias welcomed him into her family. Later, as Issei waits for Rias's errand boy, the school's Prince Charming, Kiba, and Issei's least favorite person, shows up and hoards all the attention, much to his dismay. To his surprise, he turns out to be the errand boy Rias was talking about, and as he guides Issei to their hideout, the girls worry that Issei's cultured ways might taint their precious Prince Charming. They arrive at the meeting place, the Occult Research Club, where Issei can't help but salivate at the sight of Kaneko, a textbook lowly whom he can't wait to clap.
FBI, open up!
Just then, he notices Rias's silhouette behind the shower curtain, and his little friend starts acting up. Kaneko makes fun of the disgusting face he's making, and Akino, the club's vice president, welcomes him. Issei can't help but stare at her XXL plot cannons, realizing he's in heaven and only one step away from having his own harem. Just then, Rias steps out of the shower and begins their club meeting, explaining to Issei that behind the facade of the occult club, they are all demons hiding their identities. Moreover, they are in a three-way standoff between fallen angels, like the man he encountered yesterday, who have been cast out of heaven and seek to destroy demons to become the dominant villain forces. In addition, there are actual angels with divine decree who exercise them for a living, so they have to fight them both. This much information fries Issei's non-existent brain, so Rias pulls out a picture of Yuma and explains that although he thinks he dreamed her, she is real and belongs with the fallen angels, specifically the same gang as Mr. Pseudo-Michael Jackson from last night. Issei argues that if that's the case, how come his friends don't remember her either, and she explains that Yuma used her powers to manipulate and erase memories. She further explains that her real mission was to confirm that Issei has a sacred gear inside his body and to unalive him. Once that was done, it aligns with what Issei remembers about her, and he wonders what a sacred gear is. Akino explains that historically, some strong men were born with it, and it's something that can exterminate fallen angels, hence their fear. Reyes explains how to summon it and tells him to raise his left arm and imagine something powerful. However, his attention stays on the plot hidden between her thighs instead, and he fails to summon anything. Reyes tells him to take it easy, but he finds another point to argue with her. He questions how come he's alive after Yuma positively impaled him, and Rias explains he summoned her moments before he died using a pamphlet. Thanks to that, he was reborn as a demon into her noble family and will be serving as her faithful dog. Just then, his wings pop out to prove her point. Afterwards, she explains how their life force depends on forming contracts with humans, for which they use pamphlets, and the more contracts they have, the stronger they become. She tells Issei that if he works hard, he might end up having servants of his own, with whom he'll be able to do anything, including R-rated workouts. As he later rides his bike to deliver these pamphlets, this cultured loser swears that even if he isn't human anymore, he will still become a harem king with demon baddies as his servants. As he returns to the occult club, Rias's post-shower fanservice welcomes him, and she asks him to take on one of Kaniko's summoning requests as she'd been summoned twice at the same time. Rias also gives him a hand seal, signifying that he belongs to her family. He gets excited to land his first contract, but quickly realizes that a loser stays a loser when Akino's teleportation magic doesn't work on him. Like some Postmates delivery carrier, he rides his bike to the destination, only to find his customer is a grown otaku who instantly shuts the door in Issei's face after seeing how ugly he is. He also calls him a fake who can't even teleport inside his house like Kaniko, but after crying and using his sob story to gain his pity, he's finally let in. The weeb reveals that Kaniko dresses up in a schoolgirl's uniform and lifts him princess style to fulfill his requests, making Issei realize he must have found his soulmate. The weeb tells him to show off his talent as a demon, and he flashes some cringe anime move, before admitting he's talentless. Surprisingly, the loser turns out to be a big fan of the said anime and shows off his collection of its first edition comics, while Issei brags that he has all the special editions. This results in a who is the bigger fan showdown, and the loser duo ends up having a good little hangout. Later, on his way back home, Issei senses some baddie pheromones and finds that another hot fallen angel wants to put him out of business. She yaps about how he should have died when Yuma unalived him and forges a weapon to attack him. Issei dodges it for the first time, and the baddie recognizes Rias's seal on his hand, which angers her, and she becomes even more passionate about butchering him. Realizing he might never become a harem king if he dies a third time, Issei raises his left hand and imagines the most powerful anime weapon, only to activate his own. This weapon immediately strips the baddie of her costume, leaving her plot cannons on display, and she flies away, refusing to become fuel for Issei's well-cultured dreams. He returns to Rias, and she explains he has activated his sacred gear, which he can turn on and off at will. She also warns him not to get cocky and try to take on the fallen angels on his own, all while swearing she won't let them hurt her adorable servant. The next morning, Issei stumbles upon the site of his dreams as a baddie lies face flat in the middle of nowhere, with her cake exposed for exhibition. Being a man of culture, he stares at her plot before finally helping her up. She thanks him, and he realizes she's a nun. However, despite being a demon, this doesn't bother him in the least, as blondies are his type, nuns or not. Thankfully for him, she seeks his help with directions and explains she's new to this town. As she reveals she's a nun who has been appointed at a nearby church, Issei notices the cross she's wearing and instinctively feels repulsed. Just then, she notices an injured child and heals him with magic, something that hurts Issei in the process. She later explains it's a gift from God, and Issei nervously laughs. Moments later, she finally locates the church in the distance and asks Issei to come along so she can properly thank him. But since even the sight of the church makes his skin crawl, he passes. Before going their separate ways, the girl introduces herself as Aja and hopes they can meet again. Later, Rias forbids him from loitering near the church ever again, as it could trigger a war between the gods and demons. She further explains that the chill he felt was his demon instincts telling him he was in danger, because if a demon ever gets exorcised, they pretty much evaporate. She warns him to keep his eyes and ears open and apologizes for sounding stern, right before she walks away. Later, Akino reveals that a stray demon is on the loose nearby, and they've been tasked with getting rid of it. The squad teleports near an abandoned building, and Kiba explains to Issei how demons who unalive their masters become strays and seek power by consuming souls. Rias asks Issei if he knows how to play chess. He says a dumb loser like him couldn't even play Uno if he tried, so she explains all the pieces, calling herself the king, and reveals that the hierarchy in her family works the same way. Some demons of the team work as the knight, some as the bishop, while others are the pawns. Just then, the stray demon makes her debut, making Issei wonder why all the villains in the show hate wearing clothes so much, not that he's complaining. Rias announces she'll be slaying her in the name of her family, and as a response, the stray begins playing with herself, leading Issei to ogle her plots while salivating. However, while he's busy doing that, her bazookas actually begin firing lava bombs at him, making Rias rescue his useless ass. She tells him not to let his guard down while ordering Kiba to move forward at once. He does so at lightning speed and, being the knight of the family, slashes off both her arms. After that, Kaneko deliberately gets swallowed by the demon's ugly teeth, only to burst her way out of there moments later. As if leaving the granny without dentures wasn't bad enough, she also punches her into oblivion right before Akino takes over. Just then, the demon's severed arm attacks Rias, but Issei protects her with his sacred gear, making Akino curse her with a sadistic smile on her face. As she turns into the anime version of Thor, Rias explains she's the queen of her chess pieces, and they both watch as she repeatedly electrocutes the stray demon until she turns into smoldering barbecue. Finally, Rias uses her black flames to consume this mess and a red magic circle to finally get rid of her. As the group decides to return home, Issei asks Rias what his place on the chessboard is, only to learn he's a pawn. Which leaves him more than disappointed. Later, on his way to a mission, he whines about being at the trash tier of the demon society too, as if being the worst as a human wasn't bad enough. He arrives at the client's house, only to find the door wide open. As he steps in, his gut tells him something is wrong, so being a big-time genius, he shuts the door behind him and walks right into his own demise. In there, he finds the client burnt to a crisp and his blood pooled on the floor, all while some mentally challenged hobo lounges on their couch, calling it divine punishment. He calls himself freed, a holy priest, and does a little psycho dance as he tells Issei he's next. He pulls out his very own lightsaber and a handy gun, explaining how he'll be stabbing him in his demonic heart and shooting straight at his brain. As the fight begins, Issei gets shot in the leg, in response to which he activates his gear, only to find it doesn't frighten the psycho priest in the least. In fact, he's the one who starts getting slashed at. But just before the priest finally exorcises him, Aja pops up from nowhere, yelling for it all to stop, and is shocked to see Issei there, half dead. He apologizes for hiding his true identity from her, and the priest tells her that Issei needs to die because they need the protection of the fallen angels in order to survive. As he sharpens his lightsaber for his final attack, Aja shields Issei and begs Freed to forgive him and let him go. It pisses him off, so he attacks her instead, exposing her plot cannons. He berates her for being a pain in the ass and pins her to the wall, saying he'll be hurting her despite the fallen angel telling him not to, simply because she's asking for it. As he tortures her, Issei finally manages to stand up and tells him to quit hurting her. Amused, Freed lets go of Aja, and she falls flat on her face, just moments before Issei finally charges his gear and punches the psycho in the face. This doesn't sit well with his fragile ego, so he jumps at the crippled loser with his powered-up lightsaber, only for a red magic circle to appear out of nowhere. Kiba appears from there and shields Issei's useless ass from the attack, followed by Akino and Kaneko, who call him a disgusting exorcist. Seeing Kiba's pretty face, the psycho priest wonders if he'd like to play the dom and sub game with him, but Kiba replies he has far better options. As the psycho still keeps yapping about how hot Akino's sadistic stare is, Rias fires her black flames at him and tells him to shut his trap, all while berating him for hurting her adorable, faithful dog. Issei apologizes for proving he's a disappointment yet again, but she touches his face and tells him it's okay. Just then, the psycho priest begins kicking Aja for not putting up the magic barrier properly, only to turn into a scaredy cat the moment Riaz begins showing off her true aura. Fried realizes he can't fight her alone, so he summons his fallen angel buddies. Upon sensing this, Riaz decides to flee the scene, as retrieving Issei was their original goal, all while he cries and yells that they save Aja too. Riaz says they can't do it because she's not a member of the family and therefore can't use the magic circle. Aja, on the other hand, cries and wishes that they'd meet again. As soon as they get home, Issei receives adult-themed special treatment from Riaz as she uses her melon massage to treat his wounds. This helps him recover his non-existent powers, and later, Kiba explains that it isn't just demons that become stray, but priests too. Issei is shocked to learn that not only Fried, but Aja is a stray as well, and Riaz warns him to stay away from his ugly side chick. The next morning, Issei's delusional ass decides he'll get stronger overnight to save the damsel in distress, and visions of the priest clapping her before him motivate him further. Just then, Aja shows up and says she's hungry for something hot, but this loser misreads her and takes her to a local fast food restaurant. She lies saying she was just taking a stroll in the park, and Issei offers to play a few games with her, thinking she's bored. She assumes they'd be the bedroom type and says yes, but he takes her to an actual arcade instead. Disappointed but not surprised, she tries to enjoy it, and Issei ends the date by winning her a stuffed rat kun, a foreshadowing of what Aja will eventually become. Later, she thanks Issei for making it the best day of her life, and in exchange, offers to heal all his wounds. Issei assumes it'd be the same type of healing as Riaz, but is disappointed when he isn't asked to take off his shirt. His hopes reignite when she gets down between his legs, but she only heals his knee and calls it a day, leaving him disappointed. She later lore dumps on him with her tragic backstory about how she was abandoned by her parents as soon as she was born. And as if that wasn't enough, she was also abandoned by her church when she accidentally healed a demon with her powers. They called her a pawn of the devil and threw her aside, only for her to be adopted by a fallen angel later. As if that wasn't enough of a tearjerker, she says she never knew the fallen angels were evil and believes if she survives them, she'll pass the test of God and finally make her dream come true, which is to make friends. Issei's socially inept ass instantly relates to it, and he declares he'll be her friend, but leaves out with benefits to keep it viewer-friendly. This moves Aja to tears, and she thanks him. However, his bitter ex shows up just then and ruins Issei's only chance at getting clapped. He assumes she's here for his V-card too, but it turns out that she's here for Aja, who happens to be her runaway follower. He calls Yuma an ugly bitch, declaring that Aja deserves better, but she calls him a lowly scumbag at the bottom tier of both human and demon society before pulling out her magic lance. Issei tries to assert dominance with his own sacred gear, but she only makes fun of its toy-like look, calling herself stupid for even coming after it. She says it's just as trash tier as Issei's shitty personality, as all it does is double his power temporarily, which doesn't matter since his baseline power is 0. He activates the gear to show her she's wrong, but she stabs him first, proving her point. Aja quickly begins healing him, pissing off Yuma even more, so she attacks him again, this time nearly blasting his ass off. She then warns Aja to come with her, otherwise she'd be widowed long before getting married. This works on the doormat, and she immediately leaves with her, all while Issei wets himself in the lake. His welcome home gift turns out to be a slap from Riaz, but he doesn't mind it thanks to his growing masochistic kink. She tells him he can't throw it all away for the sake of some wannabe nun, but Issei says if he's just a pawn for her, why won't she kick him out of her family and let him do what he wants to? She finally understands he's just butthurt over being a pawn and explains that pawns have the power to become any of the other pieces except the king once they reach the other side of the board, which makes them the most formidable opponent on the chessboard. She also explains that his sacred gear isn't ordinary either. Since it is activated by the holder's will, it becomes stronger when the will becomes greater. Just then, Akino third wheels her way in and whispers something to Rias, after which she leaves. Before doing so, she reminds Issei that he's weak and can't fight Yuma alone. With her gone and the gaslighting in full effect, Issei decides he'll be playing Aja's knight in shining armor anyway, but Kiba stops him, reminding him he'll die. He tells him to keep his rainbow ass out of his business, but is surprised when both Kiba and Kaneko offer to be his backup dancers instead. They explain to Issei that Rias basically told them to go attack the enemy territory in her code language, which he obviously couldn't understand thanks to his toddler-level IQ. Meanwhile, Rias and Akino teleport to where some third-grade maid cosplayer named Mittelt puts on a cringe show and tells them she won't let them interrupt their ritual. Turns out she's a fallen angel on Team Yuma too, and Akino tells her she's too late, as their other teammates are already inside their little church. Mittelt says it's fine since they are the only two real threats that stand a chance against them. Meanwhile, Kiba and Issei bond over their mutual hatred for priests and fallen angels as they wait behind the bushes scouting out the church. Suddenly, Kaneko goes off on her own and breaks in, explaining that there's no use in hiding as they would have smelled them coming anyway. Right off the bat, Freed's ugly face gives Issei nausea, almost like he's never looked in the mirror himself. The psycho loser quickly pulls out his fancy gun and lightsaber and swears he won't let them live after this encounter. Kaneko quickly tries to shut his trap, but he evades it, calling her a useless midget. This blows a fuse, and he barely survives her next tantrum, only to face Kiba after her. This Gigachad quickly goes face to face with a psycho in a sword fight, which turns Issei on and even manages to evade gunshots. As if that wasn't enough, he also turns his sword into a lightsaber, but the Michael Jackson kind, when he was still black and relevant. Seeing how Kiba is stealing all the spotlight offends Issei, so he activates his third-rate gear too and copies Kaneko's powers to land a solid punch across Freed's ugly face. An even uglier Freed gets up, but Kaneko shuts him up, followed by Kiba, so he runs away like a sewer rat, disappearing behind a light bomb. On the other hand, the maid wannabe summons her mommy and daddy, Donasek and the Melon Queen that Issei blew up. Their appearance inspires Akino to undergo a Winx-inspired transformation, and she sweeps the Best Cosplay award from right under Mittelt's feet. Following this, she summons a bunch of red circles and cages everyone inside them, warning that if anyone escapes, they'll turn into fried onions. Meanwhile, Issei and the gang finally arrive at the basement, where Aja is chained to a cross and learn that the main objective of this voodoo ritual is to strip Aja of her sacred gear of healing. Once that is done, Yuma will have her power, and she will inevitably die. Issei tries to intervene, but Yuma reminds him he's a weakling. Meanwhile, Aja cries as the ritual finally reaches completion. With her on the verge of death, Yuma finally attains her power and swallows it whole, flexing how she'll become the supreme fallen angel now. Issei tries to tell her who the MC is. However, her pseudo-ninja gang takes care of him. That's when Kiba steps in with his pre-serum MJ sword, which devours the light of the white lightsabers. Kaneko steps in too, and with both her and Kiba taking care of the ninjas, Issei finally flexes his Chad muscles and charges at Yuma. However, she doesn't fight him and instead rewards him with a half-dead Aja, whose melons bounce like they are twice as alive. Issei immediately catches her and begins shedding crocodile tears, telling Yuma to return the powers she stole. She wonders if he went to the noob school for idiots, because why would she steal something if she were to return it just cause he says so? When that doesn't work, he tries emotional blackmail and cries over how she was his first girlfriend and true love.
Wait a minute, you met this girl 2 days ago?
Yuma only laughs out loud and calls him a boring virgin loser. This pisses him off, and he yells at her, calling her a selfish bitch with sagging plot cannons, which drives her nuts. She attacks him, and he easily dodges. Kiba and Kaneko cover for him, and he makes it all the way to the church upstairs. Meanwhile, Akino evades all the attacks from the enemy while they wait for her barrier to wear off. Mittelt says the one cultured loser in Riaz's group must be mincemeat already, but she tells her not to underestimate Issei, as he's her strongest pawn. Mittelt argues that a pawn is still a pawn, no matter how strong. On the other hand, Issei cries as he tries to use the power of friendship to keep Aja alive, promising to show her a lot of fun places and help her make lots of friends if they just make it out of here alive. She cries too and tells him his tears are enough for her, just as the soul leaves her body. This begins Issei's character building arc, and he begins yelling to the sky, begging God to return her. Just as he asks God if he won't listen to his prayers because he's a demon, Yuma shows up and mocks him for being a demon and yet acting all pious and deserving. She then shows off her new healing prowess as she heals a wound inflicted by Kiba's sword, pissing him off even more. He begins yet another monologue about how Aja didn't deserve to die because she loved both humans and demons, but Yuma says it isn't her fault that she died but his. It's because he's weak that he couldn't protect her. At the same time, the three losers around Riaz and Akino laugh and make fun of Issei, saying he'll never win against Yuma because she is his ex-girlfriend who toyed with his heart so much that he still loves her. This forces an angry Riaz to Aura Farm and burn them all in a single move with her deadly black flames. Akino smirks and whispers that they shouldn't have badmouthed her beloved pet dog. On the other hand, Issei's anger increases his willpower and thus the power of his gear. He shoots a few punches at her, but Yuma dodges them and eventually impales both his legs with her thunder rods. She explains they are laced with a poison that is deadly to demons, but he, being the MC, pulls them both out with his bare hands. As if the massive fountain of blood leaking wasn't enough to help him meet God, he starts praying to the demon god, begging for the power to defeat Yuma. Turns out the demon god is faster than the actual god, and Issei immediately gets a pair of demon wings. He then begins his zombie walk toward Yuma and, with the power of love, upgrades his dollar store infinity gauntlet. This scares the heck out of Yuma, and she tries to run away, but he catches her by the neck and lands a satisfying punch across her big face, which sends her flying. Right before he collapses, Kiba catches him and tells him Riaz helped her and Koniko in the basement, then teleported here. She commends him for defeating a fallen angel on his own, moments before Koniko drags Yuma's battered body back inside. Riaz introduces herself to Miss X and shows her the remnants of her partners, whom she says she blasted off. Kiba explains to the noob Issei that Riaz is called the Princess of Destruction because she annihilates her enemies. Meanwhile, Akino cleans up after the poetic mess she's made. Riaz also reveals to Yuma that she knew they were up to something the moment Danasik attacked Issei, and the attention seeker asks if Riaz did everything for his sake. She ignores the question and instead notices that his gear has changed its shape. Happy to see it, she turns to Yuma and explains that Issei's gear isn't as simple as she thought it was, but is one of the 13 legendary Longinus, the Gauntlet of the Red Dragon, which can increase the user's power temporarily to rival even that of the Devil King himself. She then steps forward to finish her off for good, only for Yuma to change back into her con man persona and beg Issei to save her, swearing that she still loves him. Riaz notices Issei's troubled expression and waits patiently to see his reaction. Eventually, he figures it out on his own and asks her to finish the job. She destroys her in one attack after calling her a bitch for playing with Issei's emotions. Afterwards, she recovers Aja's sacred jewels, and they both plan to return them to her. Back to Aja's corpse, Issei begins his pitiful sobbing once again when even the jewels don't resurrect her, and apologizes to Riaz for being such a useless loser. She pulls out a chess piece, and Akino shows up, explaining that it's the bishop piece, which supports the demon household. Riaz says she'll try to revive Aja as a demon in her family and begins the ritual, which works. Aja wakes up, and Riaz leaves, telling Issei he'll be taking care of her. He immediately hugs her, while everyone else third wheels. The next morning, Issei meets up with Riaz and shyly asks if she will find more pawns besides him, since the chessboard has 8 pawns in total. She finds it adorable and hugs him from behind, making him blush. Then, she explains that when she tried to resurrect him, he took all of her 8 pawn pieces, which makes sense to her now that she has seen his legendary sacred gear. Kissing his forehead, she tells him to aim to be the mightiest pawn because he has the potential to become one. Right then, Aja walks in on them, and Issei panics, but Reyes, being the queen of Aura, asks Aja if she's fitting into her new role. She happily tells her that she is, and thanks her for giving her a chance. The next day, Issei's luck shines yet again, and he finds Aja's undergarments in the club room. However, Kaneko smacks him before he can use them to spark up his imagination, calling him a cultured loser. Just then, Aja shows him a glimpse of heaven as she peeks out of the shower in nothing but a towel, and he can't help but get flustered. Later, Reyes tells Issei he needs to work on his physical strength if they are going to be clapping, so she'll be picking him up at 5 in the morning to work out. The next morning, she shows up in a tracksuit, flexing her curves, and forces him to run and stretch his body, all while the loser enjoys her melons brushing up against him. She reads his dirty expression and smacks his cake, telling him to focus, which he revels in just as much. Right then, Aja comes running towards them and treats Issei to some homemade tea, revealing that Reyes is the one who called her. Reyes takes them both to Issei's house and says that since she couldn't find another place for her, Aja will be staying with Issei. Issei's parents aren't immediately convinced and argue that she won't be safe around the fountain of lust that is their son. However, Aja delivers a speech about how much Issei has helped her and leaves them without an argument. Reyes makes it even easier when she suggests they teach Aja how to be a housewife for Issei, making his parents cry tears of joy as they imagine their grandchildren. Once the deal is settled, Issei reminds Reyes that being a housewife and being his wife are 2 different things. This surprises her, and she becomes distracted, leaving Issei with no response. The next day, Aja joins Issei's class and, like some dumb bitch, tells everyone she's staying at Issei's house. As if seeing a foreign hot chick wasn't enough of a heart attack, this revelation makes the other boys lose their minds. On top of it all, the other ugly chicks tell Aja to keep her bedroom doors locked at all times and check for secret cameras. On their way back, Aja rides double on the bike with Issei, and he deliberately runs it over the bumps so she has to cling to him closer and he can feel her melons. That night, both of them feel like there's something romantic in the air. Meanwhile, Rhea stays absent-minded even when the two reach the clubroom. Suddenly, she tells Aja she'll be going on her first assignment today, and like her protective boyfriend, Issei says she's not ready yet. Akino shows up and says she's more than ready, as her powers are only below hers in their group. This makes Issei jealous, but since he still wants to play the boyfriend, he begs Rhea to let him go instead. She lets him go, and luckily, his customer turns out to be a cute little cat-loving waifu this time, or so he thought. The waifu introduces themselves as Milton and begs Issei to turn them into a magical girl. Issei says they'll need to die and be reborn into an alternate universe for that to happen, but he eventually agrees to watch a 7-season-long DVD with Milton. On his way back home, Rhea calls to ask how the job went, and Issei feels embarrassed to inform her he couldn't form a contract yet again. The next morning, Issei goes to the infirmary to sleep on his depression, only to wake up next to those familiar red strands of Rhea's hair. And I mean, not just hair. Seeing her melons in his face, he almost feels them up. However, Rhea wakes up and apologizes for waking him up, asking if he would really like to touch her. He says he definitely wants to, and Rhea tells him he can do it once he forms a contract with someone. That evening, he teleports to his new job with Rhea as his supervisor and lands inside an Edo-era themed house. There, a scary samurai greets him with a suspiciously feminine voice, who introduces herself as Susan. She says she's a foreigner, which explains the mental instability, and requests Issei's assistance in retrieving a book she left at school. He can't believe everyone he comes across is just a big weirdo, but luckily, he ends up forming a contract out of this one. As they are leaving, and Issei is already imagining those marshmallows against his palms, Susan says she has another favor to ask. As Issei settles in a corner and sulks over his shitty luck, Susan tells Rias she likes a boy and wants their help in pursuing him without using demonic powers. Rias suggests that she write him a letter, and Susan immediately gets down to it, using calligraphy and a 70-year-old's love language. She even uses a legit arrow to deliver it to her lover, making Issei's single brain cell short-circuit. That afternoon, Susan's English night-themed lover shows up with the arrow still impaled in his head and confesses that he loves her too, especially after reading such a great love letter that got delivered to him in the most elegant way on an arrowhead. It takes Issei by surprise when the knight asks Susan to date him, and the two hug. Rias, on the other hand, feels hopeful and ships them hard. Once they return home, Rias asks Issei what his take on romance is, which reminds him of Yuma, and he says one shouldn't date the other if there's no love involved. She smiles and agrees with him. Issei takes this chance to remind her of their deal, and Rias smirks, telling him she'll count to 5. Until then, her melons will be his to enjoy. As she begins counting, Issei panics and can't decide whether to touch the right or left one first. With 1 second left at his disposal, he jumps right in, only for Aja and the others to walk in on them and make him lose this chance too. Rias concludes the countdown and wishes him better luck for next time, only to laugh later at his disappointed expression. She asks if he wanted to touch her that badly. He nods his head, leading her to hug him tightly. While Issei is flustered by the way everyone else stares at them, Akino realizes Rias might be in love with him. The next day, as Issei and Aja are heading out to distribute pamphlets, Rias tells them they'll stop doing this peon work after this week because it's time for them to get familiars. She then introduces them to her low-budget Pokemon she calls Familiar, which turns into a total baddie. Akino calls upon her familiar next, who happens to be a mini orc, and Kaneko shows off her kitty cat. When Kiba tries, Issei tells him to shut up, while Aja wonders which Walmart store sells familiars. Before she gets an answer, the clubroom door opens, and the student council president, Sona, and her pals walk in. She tells Rias she's here for a formal introduction between the new servants in their respective families, and Issei realizes Sona and her pals are demons too. Akino explains she's from an upper-class family like Rias too. Sona then introduces her new pawn, Saji, and Issei gets excited over them becoming friends. However, Saji's god-complexed ass says he's ashamed to be the same piece as someone as disgusting as Issei, and flexes that he isn't a regular pawn as he was worth 4 chess pieces. Sona tells him Issei was worth all 8, and the loser realizes he's the ugly and disgusting one here. He covers it up by calling Issei a cultured man, but Sona tells him to act civil. Following her order, he immediately shakes hands with Aja and flirts with her, but Issei gets in the way and tells him to stay put. Saji says he can't keep a rare blonde baddie all to himself and flexes that, unlike Issei's pitiful ass, he was allowed to keep a familiar from the moment he became a demon. Issei says he was just allowed to have one himself, a revelation that piques Sona's interest. She tells Rias that since only one of the 3 new demons can get a familiar in the current season, they should settle this with a game. Rias suggests they play a school game since they are students, and she agrees. The following day, Sona, Rias, and their respective queens get themselves ready for a deadly game of tennis. While they shoot the ball at each other like actual cannonballs, Issei and his cultured pals focus their interests and binoculars on their plot cannons instead. Issei wishes that this freaky live action would go on forever, so it keeps blessing his eyes, but Kiba and Kaneko figure they will start using their demon powers soon. It comes true as Sona blasts the ball at Rias, boosted by her magic, and she misses, exposing her hotcakes in the process. Rias claims she'll still win as she expected nothing less from her childhood rival, and opens fire. Eventually, the game ends in a tie with broken tennis rackets. Later, they decide to hold a team dodgeball match instead. The night before the big day, Issei can't sleep, so he goes to see Aja, only to get distracted by her sheer sleeping gown. He tries to stay civilized and asks if she has a sewing kit, which confuses her. The next day, Issei watches as Akino helps Aja warm up before the game, and she makes happy noises from the pain. As an R-rated fantasy plays in his brain, Kaneko notices his dirty expression and pushes him so hard he cries out in pain. Later, he hands everyone handmade headbands that he prepared overnight and thanks everyone for their hard work. Just then, Team Sona arrives and everyone gets into position. The first ball comes from a hot baddie and exposes Kaneko's plot points, outing her from the game. The next one comes from Sona's queen at full power, but Rias holds it back, only to throw it back with even more power, obliterating one of the girl's uniforms. As her plot points become exposed too, Issei decides it's the best day of his life. As another girl attacks him, Akino protects him and puts her hot cakes on display, making the loser drool. As the game goes on and on, a ball eventually comes for his acorn too, and pulverizes him. As he writhes in pain, Aja offers to heal the injury. He tells her he can't because it hit his privates, but she insists on doing it. Eventually, he gives up and lets her heal him. The rest of the team decides to avenge him and target Saji, with Kaneko sealing the deal. At the end, only Rias and Sona remain, but since time runs out, Team Rias becomes the default winner. Later, Issei gets all the winning credit since he made those third-rate headbands to raise the team spirit, and Rias says they can't waste any more time getting him a familiar. They immediately teleport to the familiar dimension and come across a weirdo who happens to be the familiar master. He says the day of the full moon is the best day to catch familiars and wonders what kind of power Issei is looking for in his future partner. The creep says he wants someone cute who looks like a girl, and Aja jumps on the bandwagon too. The homeless master says he should choose somebody who matches his powers and takes him to a magical lake. He says a powerful water spirit lives here, and Issei begins imagining a hot MILF water goddess who'd help him lose his V-card. Just as he begins drooling, the said goddess makes her debut, but turns out to be the Rock's twin sister with a wig, rather than a MILF he'd clap. As his R-rated dreams all shatter, Issei loses his will to live. After getting resurrected, he resumes his journey and comes across a rare dragon-like breed, the spirit dragon. The master says it's a high-class dragon that is impossible to catch once it matures, and Akino believes it matches his red dragon power. Hearing all this, Issei decides to catch it. However, just as he tries his Pokemon move, weird slime starts falling over everyone, especially the girls, and begins dissolving their clothes. Kiba tries to fight it, but it sticks to his eyes, leaving the girls at the mercy of the world's #1 cultured loser. As Issei's first day in slime-made heaven begins, he gets a nosebleed and gets punched in the face by Kaneko, who tells him to keep his filthy eyes off of her. The master explains these slimes just feed on clothes and don't actually harm anyone, making Issei realize he has just met his soulmate. He insists on making this freaky slime his familiar, but Rias, who has had enough, burns it all to a crisp, followed by Akino. All this destruction makes him run to Aja and hug her so the slime stuck to her doesn't get hurt. While Aja's freaky little mind enjoys this, a burst of lightning shocks Issei out of nowhere, along with his soulmate slimes, and he loses consciousness. The culprit turns out to be the spirit dragon, who has been offended by Issei's dirty pheromones. After shocking him a few more times, he lands on Aja's shoulder and eventually hugs her, choosing her as his master. She quickly forms a pact with the cute little dragon, and everyone congratulates Aja, all while Issei mourns the death of his one true comrade, Slime. However, when they return home later, he gets upset over Aja finding a familiar before him despite becoming a demon later, and Rias worries about him. A few nights later, Issei dreams about getting married, something his betrayed friends and surprised parents have a hard time believing. What's even harder to digest is that he's marrying Rias of all people, which makes him think about adult-themed baby making scenarios with her, much to his fluster. However, right before he kisses her, a loud, gritty voice breaks him free from his daydream. As the nightmare part begins, the voice tells him he's been trying to talk to him, but because he was such a weakling, the call never got through. Issei doesn't initially recognize the entity, but his arm turns into his booster gear, implying that the entity is the red dragon. He wakes up, trying to make sense of what happened. The next day, he tells his cultured friends he couldn't sleep, and Aja apologizes for not waking him up on time. It pisses the loser duo off, but Issei can't help but flex that a cute blondie wakes him up and prepares breakfast for him. The losers beg him to set them up with a cute baddie too, and eventually he agrees and tells them the cute girl he knows is called Milton. In exchange for this, the losers take him to the girls' changing room, where they hide in an exclusive locker and watch the biggest plots of all time set free right before them. Among these treasures is Kaneko too, but she catches them red-handed and kicks them out for good. Aja heals his disgusting ass later and offers to show him her plot cannons if he's so into them, but he stops her. Riaz offers to be his fan service paradise too, which makes Aja jealous. Later, after they leave, Akino tells Riaz it's strange that even though Issei doesn't have many contracts, everyone who ever summoned him for a job had good things to say about him. Riaz says it's worrisome because this might affect his self-esteem and believes she needs to support him more. Akino wonders if she's spoiling him so much because she has feelings for him, but Riaz tells her it's only her responsibility as the president. As soon as Akino leaves, a teleportation circle appears in the room. Meanwhile, Issei reinstates his will to become a harem king someday and goes to take a bath, only to walk in on Aja's exposed hotcakes. When he tries to leave, she holds him back and hugs him from behind, while he turns red from feeling her melons against him. She tells him she's ready for him, and just before they further their plot, Issei's mother walks in on them, and he's forced to go and read the Bible. While he reminds himself he's a good Christian, a red teleportation circle appears in his room, and Riaz shows up. She immediately gets on top of him and asks him to sleep with her and take her V card, making him wonder if it's God testing him. She turns out the lights and takes off her clothes, while Issei feels like he just won the lottery. However, since Riaz appears worried and keeps talking about how they don't have much time, he wonders if she's sure about doing it with him. Still on top of him, she says he's the only one for her, despite his shortcomings, and Issei hugs her as he gets emotional. However, their plot development is interrupted by a teleportation circle from which a beautiful maid appears. She introduces herself as Graphia and tells Riaz her brother Lucifer would be disappointed by her recklessness. Riaz says her V card is hers to lose, but the woman tells her to take better care of herself since she's the heir to her family's throne. Riaz suggests they return to her home and talk about this there, before turning to Issei and kissing him goodbye. The following day, as he wonders what might have caused Riaz to act the way she did, Karma catches up to him as his cultured friends kick him down by the roadside, questioning what the Milton deal was all about. Issei laughs, telling them not to judge a little girl for her interests, and the guys wonder what part of that giant testosterone-rich wannabe Lolita was little girl. Kiba picks him up, and the two, along with Aja, reach the clubroom, only to find Graphia already there. Riaz tells them there's something they need to know, but just then, another teleportation circle appears, and some high, homeless guy appears amid flames, named Phoenix. Graphia reveals he's a high-class demon, belonging to a noble family, and happens to be Riaz's fiancé. As they settle down with Phoenix's one hand in Riaz's red hair and the other on her thigh, Issei can't believe she'd get clapped by such a disgusting guy. Suddenly, Riaz stands up and tells him she doesn't want to marry him, but he reminds her that her family is in shackles, so she needs it. He also reminds her that pure-blooded demons are rare, which is why they must make babies, but Riaz insists she'll only marry someone out of love. Phoenix suddenly stands and holds her face by the chin, reminding her that a broken engagement would hurt his pride and image, right before he threatens to take her back to the underworld. As things get heated, Graphia intervenes, saying she's here on Lucifer's orders, and proposes that the two settle their dispute with a rating game, instead of arguing back and forth like a toxic couple. Kiba and Akino explain to Issei that a rating game is like chess, where two kings fight with their servants and settle disputes. Phoenix mocks Riaz for never having played it before and reminds her that he has played and won multiple times. He also asks if this small bunch of losers is all the servants that she has, and laughs when she says it's true. He then summons his own team of 15 baddies, after seeing which, Issei begins to cry. He calls him a true man who has already fulfilled his dream of being a harem king, and Phoenix decides to rub salt into his wounds. He calls for his queen and kisses her in front of everyone, including Rias, which pisses Issei off. He calls him in a hole who will cheat on Rias even after they get married, and doesn't stop yapping even when Rias tells him to. He activates his gear and charges at Phoenix, saying he'll bring him down. But the womanizer calls a baddie into the rim, who punches some sense into Issei's last brain cell. As he passes out from pain, Rias runs to his rescue, all while Phoenix calls him a worthless loser on whom the Red Dragon's gear is wasted. Angry, Rias tells Phoenix she'll cook his ass in the raiding game, after which he leaves. The next day, the team heads to a training camp where Issei's wimpy ass has to carry some bags up the mountain. While he cries about his shitty luck, both Kiba and Koniko carry significantly heavier luggage with ease, making Rias pity how embarrassing he is. She recalls how Grafia granted her 10 extra days to prep her team for the raiding game, and she swears to make Issei stronger during this time. After they reach the resort, the girls get busy with some fan service, while Issei and Kiba change into tracksuits. As Issei's training arc begins, Kiba becomes his first mentor and teaches him sword fighting, which he flunks marvelously. Up next, Akino teaches him to concentrate and use magic, but he fails at this as well since his cultured mind occupies itself with her melons instead. Meanwhile, Aja learns magic almost instantly. Koniko teaches him physical fighting next, but he gets easily strangled, and at last, admits to being a piece of shit. Unexpectedly, Koniko gives him a pep talk, telling him his superpower is being a cultured loser, and he decides to use his only gift. In the next round, Rias tells him and Aja to cook using magic, and Issei uses his wild R18 imagination to remove onion and potato skins. Still high from the excitement of doing something useful for once, Issei pictures everyone without clothes on while Rias tells him his boosted gear is essential for the game, so he must work hard. She also suggests they all bathe together, and surprisingly, Akino and Aja agree with it too. However, Koniko refuses to be seen by his disgusting eyes, and Issei's dream of being a Peking king shatters once again. Meanwhile, Lucifer tells Grafia that even though he knows Rias has no chance of winning against Phoenix, he's happy she made a decision for herself as his family's heiress. At the same time, Issei sneaks into Aja's room and asks for her help with his training. Once on the training grounds, he uses her clothes on a dummy and tries to slice through them using magic. However, the magic only works when he tries it on Aja, whose clothes he slices through multiple times while enjoying his R18 fantasies as usual. The next morning, Rias becomes the team's history teacher and explains how an ancient war between God, demons, and fallen angels reduced the demon race from 72 noble families to 3. Of the 3, one is hers, and the other are Sona and Phoenix's. Because there aren't any demons around anymore, they use resurrected humans as their servants, and that's where the raiding games come in. Rias explains that these games grant the human-turned demons real battle experience and increase their stats, which is why they are important. Afterwards, Aja explains the 2 weaknesses of demons, the Bible and holy water, hoping to use them against Phoenix's team. Apparently, holy water does something secretly horrible to demons, while reading the Bible gives them headaches. She whines about how she can't help but read it anyway, despite being a demon, and always ends up with headaches. The other sadists in the group enjoy it and welcome her to the demon family. That night, Issei comes across Rias, who is happy to learn that both of them can't sleep. They take it to the garden, where Rias devises her battle strategy and tells Issei they don't have any chance of winning against Phoenix. As his family is even more elite than hers, he has the power of a sacred beast, and finally, because he's immortal. On top of it, he has won 8 out of the 10 raiding games he took part in. In fact, his 2 losses were deliberate since he wanted an alliance with the winning families, which makes him impossible to beat. Issei then asks if Phoenix is so perfect, why is she against the engagement? To which she says it's because she wants to marry someone who loves her for her, not because she's the heiress of a noble family. Issei instantly confesses that he'll love her regardless of name and family, simply because she's his number one, no matter what. This makes her blush, but she quickly rebounds, telling him they have to give the game their all because she can't lose, now that she's picked a fight. As the baddie returns, Issei chickens out and calls himself a weak, useless loser, and his self-pity talk works wonders. Rias hugs him, and while he cries, suffocating against her juicy melons, she swears to give him confidence and stand by him until he falls asleep. The next day, Issei's training resumes, and with Kiba as his opponent, Rias tells him to boost his sacred gear multiple times. After achieving 12 boosts, Issei realizes he couldn't have done it without the training camp, and fires his attack at Kiba. It initially turns him into a Super Saiyan without the cool hair, but then it completely wipes out the top of a nearby mountain. Rias tells him he'll be the deciding factor during the game, which is why he needs to believe in himself. As the big day arrives, Aja knocks on Issei's door, dressed up in her nun outfit. He wonders if she's here for some freaky pre-game role-playing, but she settles beside him and tells him she's scared of the game. Issei tells her he's always by her side, making her imagine their future wedding and kids. At the clubroom later, while everyone gets mentally prepared, Sona shows up with her queen and tells Rias she'll be broadcasting the game to her and Phoenix's family. Rias says she won't disappoint her, just as Grafia teleports there too. Aquino explains to Issei that they'll be teleported to an alternate dimension, designed specifically for the game, once it begins. As Sona leaves after reminding Rias she's up against her worst nightmare, Grafia informs her that Lucifer will be watching the game too. Kiba explains to Issei that he's the Demon Lord and Rias's brother, which he finds hard to believe. According to him, he's the one nicknamed Crimson Satan and the most powerful deity in the whole realm. Just as Issei finally understands the family pressure that Rias was talking about, Aquino tells them it's time, and they all teleport to the game. It turns out that the alternative dimension is a replica of their school, and they all end up back in the clubroom. Sona explains the rules of the game, saying that Rias's base will be the occult research clubroom, while Phoenix will be in the principal's office in the main building. Once the pawns of both teams get to these locations, they'll be able to promote. As Issei becomes delulu about becoming Rias's queen, Kiba bursts his bubble and reminds him that the bases will have the strongest defense. They all put on some technology-defying communication device, and the game finally begins. As Phoenix tells his hot girl harem to break Rias's ego completely, Rias devises her plan with Kiba's help. They plan to take the center of the field, the gymnasium, and she orders Kaneko and Kiba to set traps in the forest. As they head out, she tells Aquino to set illusions around the traps in the forest, leaving only the useless duo behind. Rias explains that Aja will stay with her at their base since she's the healer and cannot be harmed, whereas Issei would get special boyfriend treatment by lying his head on her lap. Initially, he can't believe his crazy luck, but as soon as he feels her warm, thick thighs, his brain stops working. As he cries tears of joy and she looks down at him with her tender eyes, Aja enters her jealous side chick mode. That's when Rias gets down to business and reveals that when Issei was resurrected with all 8 pawn pieces, the power became too overwhelming for his weak body. To keep him alive, she put multiple seals on his power source, some of which she reveals she'll remove now. As he feels a surge of power running through his body, Aja apologizes to the Lords of Plot for acting like a self-centered bitch. Meanwhile, Rias tells Issei she's expecting a lot from his weak but plot armor-clad existence. Just then, Aquino contacts her, revealing that they are done with all the preparations, and Rias commences their operation. Issei and Kaneko sneak into the gym and get found instantly, only to find they are up against a hot baddie, 2 lollies, and a sadistic freak. Kaneko says she'll take the baddie as they are both rooks. Issei is a bit disappointed at first, but quickly reminds himself that flat is justice too, and jumps right into the 3 versus 1 with his gear on. As the fight begins, the baddie kicks Kaneko and reveals her mini plots, which distract Issei. This cost him a solid punch to his guts, after which he realizes he's cooked. While he runs for his life from the pair of psycho lollies and their chainsaws, Kaneko gains the upper hand after landing a few strikes. Eventually, the Lords of Plot Armor bless Issei, and he dodges the lollies, marking them with a spell, and breaks the Flattie's stick before marking her too. With all three of them marked, he prepares to use his top secret new trick. While everyone expects it would be something innovative, this cultured loser uses his magic to rip the girls' clothes off, turning the death battle into a fan service fest. As all the girls in the world roll their eyes at him, he feels like the proudest man alive and thanks Aja for her sacrifices. Right then, Kaneko brings down the hot baddie too, and Rias commands them to move to the next stage of their plan. At the same time, 3 of Phoenix's pawns get caught in Akino's hidden lightning attack, while 3 other baddies try to sneak into Rias's base through the forest. Kiba finds them and, with a charming smile on his face, reveals that they've been caught in Akino's hidden trap. A hobo-themed baddie tells Kiba he can't defeat her since she's so hot, but he only smirks and tells her to try him. Unfortunately, just when it feels like Rias's team is winning, Kaneko gets caught in the opposing queen's attack and has to forfeit, leaving Issei traumatized. After Kaneko's teary-eyed farewell, Issei turns to Phoenix's queen and tells her to come down so he can beat her ass. Rias tells him to stay calm while she barely keeps her own composure, and Akino takes over the battlefield, saying she'll defeat the plot queen herself. Kiba grabs Issei right after he defeats the 3 clowns from the forest, and the two share a fist bump, swearing to win this game and avenge Kaneko. Just then, Rias tells them she and Aja are attacking Phoenix's base since all his pawns are down, and although Kiba tries to make her reconsider, she says she's going in, hoping to break Phoenix's spirit. The rainbow duo then makes it to the school playground, only for another hobo baddie to show up and call herself Phoenix's knight. As she flashes her sword at him, Kiba pulls out his own, and the two charge at each other. Just as Issei is about to sit back and grab some popcorn, the Lolita wannabe and a bunch of other cosplay clowns surround him. He realizes Phoenix is attacking them with all he has, which Rias and Aja take advantage of. The Lolita calls upon a biker baddie to attack Issei, but as he easily dodges her sadistic punches, he questions who the flattie is to be bossing such a hot chick around. The said chick reveals she's Phoenix's sister, which makes Issei jealous. He believes that, despite being a total a-hole, Phoenix has everything, from a cute little sister to a hot chick harem. Being too concerned about someone else's business earns him a solid punch, just as his gear hits its 5th boost. At the same time, Rias and Aja reach the main building only to find Phoenix already waiting for them. Meanwhile, the hobo baddie breaks Kiba's sword, but just as she thinks she's won, he forges another blade out of thin air. This ice blade crushes hers, after which she takes out a dagger and attacks him. Kiba counters the attack and flexes a 3rd blade, which absorbs the fire from her dagger. He then explains his sacred power is forging blades of multiple kinds as he completely annihilates her, and Issei feels jealous of his Gigachad aura. Being distracted lands him yet another free face restructuring, but this time he fires back with his gear and turns the chick into roasted chicken. However, right before he can celebrate, he finds Rias and Aja at the rooftop, facing Phoenix, who tells Rias to quit underestimating his experience with stupid virgins like herself. Rias casts her spell and shoots at him, which he easily counters with his Phoenix fire. At the same time, she tells Issei she believes in him. This loser, who got jumped on by all the remaining chicks at once, suddenly feels a strange power surging through him and stops a legendary sword with his gear alone. After kicking the baddie away and yapping about how he won't let Rias down, his gear goes through another transformation and becomes fancier. Issei realizes his new promotion allows him to steal skills, so he asks Kiba to lend him his sword forging skill. As soon as his gear loads up on it, he punches the ground, out of which emerge 1,000 blades, unaliving all the girls left on the battlefield. However, before he can celebrate, Akino loses her fight against the Queen of Plot Cannons, and Issei realizes they are done for. As if this wasn't enough, Kiba gets taken by the Queen too, and Phoenix warns Rias to forfeit. She tells him to eat shit and attacks his ugly face, only for the crackhead to rise up from the ashes again. Just then, Issei climbs up to the roof and gets promoted to a queen's status. At the same time, Phoenix's queen gets there too, demanding that he let her take out the ugly-faced loser and the wannabe nun. Phoenix tells Rias to forfeit once more, which she obviously refuses, forcing him to let the plot queen do her thing. She takes out Aja with a blast, but the queen's promotion saves Issei. He then charges at Phoenix with his gear boosted, only to lose his GigaChad aura by tripping off the roof. Not only that, it turns out that boosting his gear so many times has drained his body, rendering him unable to fight. Furious over this, Rias recklessly attacks Phoenix, but he regenerates his arms with immortality and once again tells her to quit. Issei butts in and tells her to keep fighting because he can still stand, all while coughing up blood and pissing Phoenix off. He quickly flies down to him and starts punching some sense into his thick skull while Rias watches from afar, too paralyzed to move. Watching him bleed for her reminds her of his promise to love her for her, but his persistence only angers Phoenix further. He reveals he plans to injure him beyond recovery, as deaths during the game have no consequences. However, right before he achieves this, Rias tearfully holds him back and forfeits the match. As the smug bastard smirks victoriously, Issei stares at Rias in disbelief. A few days later, he dreams of the dragon once again. This time, he makes his full debut and tells Issei to quit acting like some third-rate background character while hosting the strongest dragon emperor in his very own body. He also offers to lend him his power if needed, but Issei wakes up then. Grafia teleports right inside his room, and he questions what became of the game, only to be shocked to learn that Rias surrendered. He argues she would never, ever do that, but Grafia says she had to do it to keep him alive. It moves him to tears, and he blames himself for everything. Once a bit calmer, he asks Grafia if the others are okay, but she tells him they are in the demon realm to attend Rias and Phoenix's engagement party. This makes him cry once again as he realizes he will never be able to clap her if she marries a GigaChad. Grafia assumes he's crying because he blames himself, and offers him an invitation to the engagement from Lucifer, revealing that the Demon Lord finds him interesting, too. As she leaves, Aja walks into his room and quickly hugs him, pushing them both onto his mattress. She cries, feeling happy to find him alive and well, but he gets back up and tells her he's going to rescue Rias, his #1 girl. Aja holds back her side chick tears and says if he does so, he'll get beaten to the pulp by Phoenix again. Issei promises her he'll come back alive no matter what and, after talking with the Red Dragon Emperor, sets out. Meanwhile, as Rias stares at herself dressed in white in the mirror, Phoenix teleports to her room and tells her he'll dress her up even fancier for their grand wedding so that everyone can see the pricey assets he owns now. As he leaves, she holds back her tears and thinks about Issei and how his love for her pushed him to almost die. On the other hand, Lolita Phoenix brags about her brother's victory to the guests at the party, while Team Rias gives her the bombastic side-eye. Sona shows up and tells them they did far better than what anyone expected them to, and Kaneko says it's not over yet. Just then, Phoenix makes his debut dressed like a B-squad pole dancer and summons Rias to announce their engagement. Just then, Issei makes his dramatic entrance and announces that Rias's V-card belongs to him only, making her blush. Phoenix's men immediately surround him, but Kiba and the others intervene and tell him to get Rias while they'll handle it. Just then, the Demon Lord shows up and tells Phoenix he's the one who called this clown here for some entertainment. When he tries to argue, Lucifer shuts him up and says that although the raiding game was entertaining, it was unfair because Rias had no experience and a smaller team against a seasoned player like him, and she still nearly beat him. He then turns to Issei and says he wanted to see his rumored dragon power himself. Phoenix realizes he wants to pit his Phoenix and Issei's dragon against one another, which Lucifer confirms. He also asks Issei what he wants as his reward, and although Phoenix believes they shouldn't entertain such a lowly scumbag, Lucifer agrees to give him Rias in exchange for his win, making Rias blush once again. As the match begins, Issei claims he'll defeat Phoenix in less than 10 seconds. Phoenix says he'll turn him into ashes in 5, while flexing an even more homeless look. Issei activates his gear and begs Rias for promotion to the Queen's title, saying even though he's completely useless, he still wants to be her strongest pawn. As she grants it, the dragon gear spreads throughout his body, turning him into a Walmart-grade Power Ranger. It turns out that he made a deal with the Dragon Emperor and exchanged his arm for 10 seconds of his full power. Using this power, he blasts the homeless crackhead with a magic bomb, which barely affects him thanks to immortality. Phoenix repays him in kind with his firepower, and although Issei's delusion is that he'll withstand it, he barely survives it. Desperate to prove himself, he turns to God and uses a cross to attack Phoenix, damaging him severely. The crackhead doesn't understand how a demon is holding a cross without taking any damage, only to realize Issei has already traded his arm with the dragon. With 3 seconds left at his disposal, Issei boosts his gear and runs toward Phoenix to cook him thoroughly, only for the dragon power to run out at the last minute. He argues with the dragon and asks that he take some other organ in exchange for a few more seconds, but he says his body can't take it anymore. That's when Phoenix picks him up and tells him he's over, only for Issei to pull out holy water, his final big surprise. Using it to boost his gear, he concentrates his magic at the gear's center and prepares for his final attack. Faced against certain death, Phoenix turns to talk no jutsu and begs Issei to let him breed more demons before dying, but Issei says he can't let another demon have his disgusting genes before punching him in the gut. Before he finally sends him to meet God, his lowly sister shields Phoenix, and the match comes to an end. Rias is touched deeply by Issei's sincerity and catches him as the ground disintegrates, thanking him for everything. He later uses Lucifer's gift to summon a griffin and flies Rias to their occult clubhouse. On their way, Rias thanks him for sacrificing his arm for her, and Issei says he can sacrifice all of himself if she needs him to. Instantly rizzed up, she kisses him, and Issei's lifelong dream comes true. Meanwhile, Lucifer and Graphia watch them from afar, happy that Rias won't be bound to some self-obsessed shithead at least. Thanks for watching until the end, you absolute legend. To throw off fake fans, drop Harem King in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on one of our other exciting videos here on the screen. Stay awesome, stay AniGeek,